Welcome in, race fans, to this edition of Through the Gears presented by Front Stretch. I'm your host, Tino, and I couldn't be more excited to get back into this weekend's racing and betting action for Pocono Raceway. The tricky triangle, we're going to conquer it, just like we tried to conquer the streets of Chicago, but unfortunately, Alex Bowman was the one who got it done, and our favorite play of Tyler Reddick, well, he hit the wall after being so close there and finishing second at the end. We'll get into more of that in this week's episode. Before I do so, I got to give a special shout out to Paul Chambers. He commented on last week's video, Kyle B8, Marcus, and Brandon for all commenting on last week's video. I appreciate you guys for doing that there. And it's always fun to be able to talk to you guys and interact with the community and answer any questions you may have about NASCAR betting. Also got to give a shout out to our guest who will be joining us here today. It is Wyatt Watson, one of the recurring guests of the show. It's always great having him on, and you can follow him at Wyatt Game Time, as he will be covering some IndyCar this weekend as well as we go through some of our best bets on the NASCAR side of things. So let's bring him in and go through the gears. Now joining us as we go through the gears, previewing Pocono Raceway and everything in between, it is the one, the only Wyatt Watson. Wyatt, thanks for coming back on the show. Officially the most reoccurring guest we've had on Through the Gears here. So I'm excited about that. How you feeling? You excited for this weekend?
I'm always excited. I'm always excited to be on Through the Gears with you. Man, I love being here. It feels like home to me. So I'm excited for Pocono. I will be participating this week because I'll be going to Iowa this week. So let's hope everything cashes out this week. And I'm excited and thrilled to bet on this weekend. Let's go, baby.
Yeah, hell yeah. And you'll be in Iowa for what? What are you
the IndyCar race. The IndyCar race.
Yeah.
I'll be out there for the doubleheader out there. Their odds ain't out yet, so I would have. This is a Wednesday recording, so I would have those maybe for a little sneak peek just because I'm going. But I mean, can you bet against Joseph Newgarden there? But we'll see how the books do there. But today we're hammering Pocono. I'm excited to let y'all know my thoughts going into this weekend, and let's make money. Like I said last week, let's make money.
Awesome. So, I mean, with that, before we can get to Pocono, we got to discuss Chicago, which was an insane race. Alex Bowman gets it done. Were you surprised by that finish there? I mean, I know I was personally surprised by Christopher Bell's decision to take slick tires when he did. Now, I think it would have paid off had he not gotten into the trouble that he did in the end, because Reddick was right there in second, pushing Bowman. It looked like for the lead it was going to be had he not hit the wall there. So that hurt my bank account because I was on Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, SVG, and Kyle Larson. What do you think about that race there?
That is such a bad beat. You had all four looked like they had a shot to win. That stinks. But yeah, that was surprising. I mean, I thought Bell was going to stay out on the wet weather tire. He was very strong. Nobody could catch him. He was pulling away from everybody. And I mean, slick tires are slick tires. But then the cautions came out, and it was a dogfight. And Bell would have won if he did not get taken out by that wreck out of I think turn 3, going down the stretch there. It was, man, what a finish to that race. Alex Bowman, nobody had that on their bucket list. Now, Bowman's a great road racer. I'm not surprised he won. He showed speed down the stretch, but he was more of a top 5, top 10 kind of guy. But when the strategy split, I mean, he obviously faster than Joey Handwich. That was also what a surprise there. Top 5 for him. Great day for that stage 60 team. But Bowman he had a good enough car, and Bell's misfortune, and then Reddick's just slight miscalculation on the final lap. I mean, it's NASCAR. I mean, we've had 2 insane finishes since like from Nashville and from Chicago. That's tough to bet on, obviously, unless you're one of those guys. I mean, I saw somebody with the Zane Smith prop that I think we talked about a couple weeks ago. It's like only the bold and the brave are gonna be cashing out on a race like that. By the way, again, shout out Todd Gilliland, top 10. Shout out Ricky Stenhouse, top 10. That nobody was on that. I guarantee you that. I would have been on a Todd Gilliland top 10. I've been high on him getting great finishes, but Chicago and the rain. If you see rain forecast, which nobody saw rain, although I had a hunch there was gonna be rain somehow. I was like, there's gonna be rain. There's like a 20% chance. There was like a 20% chance. I was watching the radar like a hawk. I was like, somehow there's gonna be rain in the Windy City in that time of year, and it came down more than I expected. What a race! What a fantastic wind of racing from there. But I'm sorry for you, Tino, and your bank account. That's even more of a riddle. We talked before the show. That is insane. I can't. I would take a week off, but we don't take weeks off through the gears, man.
No. We only double back. And honestly, it feels like I'm tripling back because Nashville was a bad break with Tyler Reddick, who looked like one of the cars that had contention, had good speed, but then it was even worse because I had Denny Hamlin, who should have won that race. Then he runs out of gas based off of the 5 overtimes. Okay, Tyler Reddick comes back into the picture, 17-1, by the way, and he should have easily passed Joey Logano and Zane Smith there, but he just didn't have. He was going from like 6th to 1st, had it, didn't have it. Joey's all over the racetrack, doesn't make it happen, finishes 3rd at Nashville. That was 17-1, like I mentioned. So I was like, okay, that would have been a big hitter. I'll eat that. He'll definitely be aggressive and want to go into Chicago with that nice Jordan paint scheme, everything that he's good at with road racing. Awesome paint scheme. And then finishes 2nd. So Tyler Reddick 3rd, hurts the bank account. 2nd, crushes the bank account. This week at Pocono, I mean, maybe we're alluding to some potential betting here for some outright winners with him, but the last 2 weeks have definitely hurt me, and he has hurt me from that time as well. But let's move on. Let's go forward now. Like we said, no weeks off, and we're going to Pocono. And this is the tricky triangle. Wyatt, are there any tracks or strategies that you can sort of compare to this one or even think about since it is such a unique track?
Well, for strategies on track, that now that you mentioned that, I will say that Pocono is big enough to where these teams can pull off the pit right now and not go a lap down. So that does throw a interesting wrench into a betting perspective. It's tough to see who will make those strategy moves. It's really after qualifying you see probably people at the back trying to do that. So I mean that's when now that you say strategy for that, yeah. But in terms of other tracks, there's nothing like the tricky triangle of Pocono. It's you have to rely on previous data, previous races. Now, sure, you can go with who's hot and who's kind of on a run right now, which Reddick is obviously. Like we're talking mighty on Tyler Reddick. He deserves this. He finished 2nd here last year. He finished 3rd at Nashville. He finished 2nd. And probably should have been back-to-back winners right now from both of those races. And if anything, if he finished 2nd here in Pocono, albeit it got a little crazy at that race too.
And I think that's a major thing, like you mentioned, the next gen era, which is big for us because we have in front of us now the iFantasyRace.com speed rankings heat chart from the next gen era for these drivers, which to me, this is something that I look at pretty much every week and trying to really look past, my research and stats, and it helps provide a little bit of an additional data here. Denny Hamlin is first up on the rankings as he was 3rd quickest in Pocono in 2022, same speed in 2023 for an average speed rank of 3. Larson next up, Byron, Truex as well, Reddick, everyone that we've sort of talked about in this one already. I feel like this is a track where if you are racing good and if you are, those 4 or 5 veterans, like we've mentioned, they're going to consistently be good at this track. Is there anyone on this speed rankings chart that you sort of look at and are surprised by in this one that could be a potential underdog for us to talk about in a little bit?
And surprise, I'd say, I mean, I'm not surprised with Ross Chastain having a green in 22. He had a great car there. I'm more surprised from last year that he fell off a little bit. I thought about going with Chastain, and I don't know. I'm kind of wary because if you look, if you look at Daniel Suarez from last year too, they are tied actually 20. I don't know how that happens, but I wanted to bet Chastain this week at a plus 22, but that's keeping me away from that. Bubba, I'm not surprised in the green a little bit. He he has a good number too, I believe. He's plus 3,500 on DraftKings at the moment. But he's 12th and 8th fastest. I don't think he's contender for the win per se. Kyle Busch being the fastest in 2022. Granted, he was still with Joe Gibbs Racing. Granted, he finished second in that race, I believe, before he got disqualified. Joe Gibbs Racing is a very strong team, so I'm not surprised there. The drop off with Richard Childress is more of a own to Chevrolet and that team being a little bit slower. So that's not really a surprise. William Byron, I think I've been struggling to see if there's value with William Byron. I'm not sure, but I think at his number, which is like plus 850, and that's where I'm kind of shaky on him. My final guy to go to is Ty Gibbs.
Yeah,
I think Ty Gibbs is the one that makes my eyes pop out, and I'm going to talk ad nauseum about him more. Plus 1,500, fifth fastest. I don't know what else I got to tell you. Like, hammer that now.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I'm glad you mentioned sort of the odds as well, because that's a perfect segue into the odds breakdown. Let's continue talking about some of these drivers. I'll get back to Ty Gibbs in a moment. Let's stick with the favorites, and they're the same drivers we mentioned on the total speed ranking, so it makes sense. The Hamlins, Larsons, Bells, MTJ, and Reddick, they'll be your top five in this one. So Wyatt, out of those five, they're ranging from plus 400 to plus 750, and now that's on DraftKings specifically. You were able to shop out and find a better price for Reddick at plus 950, which is awesome. So guys, definitely continue to do that. But out of those top five drivers we've seen, which one stands out to you the most? Because we talked about Denny Hamlin before the show, who had to kind of move two drivers up the racetrack in the past 2 years to win this race. And then he obviously didn't win in 2022. He was disqualified due to, part modification in the car.
Plastic, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then in 2023, runs Kyle Larson up into the wall, and Larson looked like the more dominant car in that one. Had it stayed green, he would have not been put in the wall. I think Larson would have won it. So knowing those two things, how Denny's technically won both races, or at least been in position to do so, do you favor him over the field in this one?
It's tough not to favor him, honestly. And of course, I've shopped around too. He's a plus 400 on DraftKings, but he is a plus 490 on FanDuel. I love that number. It's close enough to plus 5. I like he's won here so many times. I'm surprised he's only a plus 490 on FanDuel. Like, that's very high value for a dominant driver in Denny Hamlin at this track, who's pretty much owned the track since 2005. I have to put that into consideration going and like putting a unit or two on, probably 2 units at least, on Denny Hamlin getting the win, because that's max value. You're not getting that number after especially practice, because he's going to be fast here. It's inevitable. The fact he's a plus 490, I think, is more respect to Kyle Larson and his speed last year, which his highest number I saw was plus 550. I don't know if I want to take both guys and be safe. I think it's very smart to do that, though. And I'm going to take an audible, actually. I would take plus 550 for Larson and plus 490 for Hamlin any time of the week. As I've said before, I think that's a great number for both those guys that are heavy favorites going in. Christopher Bell is another one I like, just because it's not because if you look at his speed chart, he doesn't have an impressive number. He's 12th fastest from last year. He's 5th fastest from 2022. It's the momentum that Bell has generated the last couple of weeks. And I think Bell's plus 850 number is respectable for his pace and how good he's been running as of late. Again, we've talked, I think I'll mention Reddick again, because I think he's viewed as a favorite on most books, but the plus 950 number is too much to argue. A plus 310 top 3, just of how good he's been running, is hard to ignore. And I think you have to take that with how great he's been running too. And he finished second here last year. I think that's a no-brainer pick too.
No, I definitely agree. And especially when we look at him, and he's been in contention to win races, but has fallen short. He has like one of the most second place finishes out of the entire series right now. And I feel like, with that continuing to be the case, even though the value is great for a winner, I think playing it safe and also betting for a top 3, like you mentioned, or even a top 5, is definitely worth it, especially for someone that consistently, like Reddick, has the fast cars, gets the most out of them up until the very end. He's just not able to capitalize, it seems like. I mean, that was the way at Texas as well. And now we're looking at it happen at Nashville, happen at Chicago. I don't want it to keep happening. Tyler Reddick deserves to win these races, but from a betting standpoint, definitely smart to do. So now let's get into some more underdogs here, or just drivers with not even underdogs, just better value. Chase Elliott, will start off with him. Also, William Byron, plus 850, plus 900. And then there's a little bit of a gap. Ty Gibbs at plus 1400, Blaney plus 15, Keselowski at plus 16, and then we'll throw in Ross Chastain at plus 2200. Why? When you look at these drivers, Chase Elliott, for me, is another one that's kind of stands out. Plus 900, at least on DraftKings, is pretty good value for a driver like him. I feel like they haven't been as dominant as they could be as of late, but we're going to a completely different track, like we mentioned. Blaney has won here. He's plus 1,500. Ty Gibbs, we talked about there as well. And then Ross Chastain. This is a good track for him, but we've seen less speed out of Trackhouse, I feel like, overall this year. Chastain, to me, has been, or at least just on the track, has been a top 5 to top 12 driver. I don't really see him leading laps as much as he used to, or at least contending for race wins. Is this a track where you can look at Chastain at plus 2,200? And what do you determine when it comes to betting on that in terms of the value that it presents?
For Chastain, it's very, like I said earlier, I wanted to bet him initially because I thought that was a great idea. 2,200 is a great number. But look at the speed and where he finished last year. Trackhouse kind of lost something at Pocono last year, and I don't know if they're going to get it back. I don't know if it was, I forget if it was strategy. He was kind of a non-factor all last year. So 2,200 number was enticing at first, but when I dug more just recently, it's tough for me to pull the trigger on that number just because of how uncertain I feel just to get the full win. I'm even questioning even doing a prop bet on him. That's how much I'm questioning, because 20th running that's not great. That's no money unless there's a magical prop unless it's like a versus against him or like a group against him. That's the only thing I'm kind of looking at. Like, do I want to be in Chastain's group? Probably. I'm not betting on Chastain. I'm betting on somebody else. I even looked at the groups, a couple of those groups. I can't remember any of them. I didn't write them down, unfortunately. But I wouldn't bet on Ross Chastain. To segue into Chase Elliott, though, I love what you're thinking about Chase Elliott. And let me throw this at you. There is a boost on Chase Elliott on Caesars for 1,400. 1,400.
Whoa. I think I'm taking that any time of the week. With Chase Elliott, I think you got to take that value.
That's great value. Yeah, I would absolutely pull the trigger on that number for a former winner here. And he's been one of the most consistent guys all year round, no matter where we go. Now, of course, you got to win at Texas. That kind of came out of nowhere. I'd like his numbers maybe for a prop. I didn't write any of his top 5 numbers down, but I like Chase Elliott going into the weekend just because this is one of his strong tracks that he's ran at. Plus 300 on a top 3, plus 130 on a top 5. I think you can get something out of that from Chase Elliott. Those are off DraftKings, by the way.
Definitely. I especially like the top 5 too. We'll get into that more with the prop bets here. But let's keep going down the list. Is there anyone? See, this is important because normally I feel like we'd stop there, right? Plus 2,200 for Ross Chastain, probably the biggest underdog we would see this weekend. But after what happened last week at Chicago, let's keep talking down the list, because I think Bowman was like plus 6,000, 60 to 1, 40 to 1. He was definitely back there in the range where we wouldn't even normally talk about or look at. So let's cover all our bases here. Any potential long shots in this one. One driver sticks out in my mind. I'll get to him in a second as we go down the list. Kyle Busch is first up, plus 2,200 as well. He's ran great here, but as you mentioned, that was with Joe Gibbs Racing. So based off of the performances he's had with RCR, he's due for a good finish. I mean, because he's just had nothing but bad luck, but I don't necessarily want to bet on him at all until he proves it to me. Joey Logano plus 2,200. They've been struggling all year except for that Nashville victory. Chris Buescher is the driver that I was thinking of that may be able to play an upset in this one, a plus 2,500. I know it may seem uncharacteristic, I feel like, for them at this track, but I mean, we've seen it. We've seen drivers like Bowman, like Logano on the bubble finding a way to win. And I feel like Buescher is next up in that set to get a victory in this one. What do you think about Buescher and his odds to do so here, Wyatt?
I kind of was looking at Buescher and felt the same way. Plus 3,100 on FanDuel, by the way. I saw that number, but also I will say there is one. I'll go back to kind of a comparison track. You can kind of draw slight comparisons to Michigan a little bit, and that is a super speedway style track that he won at. Held off Truex in the final laps, but he can put himself. Pocono is, again, and it's a strategy track where you can put yourself into position. And if you have a strong enough car, which RFK has strong cars, and Chris Buescher has that talent, former winner at Pocono, in quotations, by the way, that I could see putting slight value towards Chris Buescher this weekend at a plus 3,100 number. Again, RFK, it's tough because Toyota has a tight grip on Pocono if things go normally. But with the chaos, you might see Buescher go at it. Now for Bowman's plus 3,000 number, I do like plus 3,400 on FanDuel. Shout out FanDuel again.
Also a winner here.
Also a winner here, a little bit, and it caused a little chaos. There was a little chaos that was involved in that one too. So you never know. Like, You can look at these guys down here. There's another one I got, and this will throw you way off, I think. But let's talk about Josh Berry again. Why not talk about Josh Berry? Remember, last year he had the car to beat in the closing moments in the Xfinity Series race, and I only say that because look at what Kevin Harvick did last year. He finished fourth. He got himself into position. Rodney Childress, the man on the pit box. If it comes down to strategy, I want Rodney Childress guiding me and putting me in the position to win. So I think Berry, I think he's like plus 10,000. I'm looking at on DraftKings. Like that's a great number, and that also will go into his props that we'll talk about later. I love those. Yeah. I love those odds.
I love those odds too, especially for a pre-practice and qualifying number. We could see him. I'm glad you mentioned him too, because if we're talking about, flatter racetracks that we have been on so far this season, Iowa comes to mind. They were really strong at Iowa too. So with the Rodney Childress connection there in terms of the strategy and the right calls to make on the box, he's the guy you want to have, like you mentioned. And then Josh Berry was not only good here, but great in the Xfinity Series. So we know he knows how to race at this track. And then you throw in the fact that Iowa's a flat track that he actually led legitimate laps on just based off of speed.
New Hampshire too.
Yeah.
New Hampshire too.
So 100 to 1 for Berry. Sheesh.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I think that's a great number there. And that would be a pre-practice and qualifying number as well, because you would consider him potentially qualifying inside the top 10. You're not going to see 100 to 1 anymore. That'd probably be cut down to 40 to 1, 30 to 1 even. If
20,
people start
25 to 1.
Yeah, 25 to 1.
It can be cut by 4.
For real. And I think that's a good example of, for everyone who's tuning into the show, sort of how you can capitalize on odds post-practice or before pre-practice and pre-qualifying, and how the closing line value will change afterwards, like we just mentioned. So, all right, we broke down the odds. We talked about all the drivers. We talked about the long shots. We talked about the favorites. What are you betting on in this one?
Let me start off with Denny Hamlin again with the plus 490 number. I think that's just too much to not pay attention to. And I think that's a great number for the favorite. One of the best numbers I've seen for a non-super speedway, honestly. And I think he dominates at this racetrack. Again, it goes down to, because of Kyle Larson, how good he is at a plus 550 number, I believe, again on FanDuel. that that they are respecting Larson too much. So that gives Hamlin a little value before practice and qualifying commence. So the plus 490 on Hamlin, I'm hitting. The plus 550 on Larson, I'm also going to take going into this weekend, because if Larson does well in qualifying, which I believe he will do, that number will move up a little, and I don't see that going down anymore. In fact, I will say at opening Tuesday, he was plus 650, so I'm not surprised it's going down. So a little, and Hamlin's was stayed at plus 400 most places, but plus 490 on FanDuel. Have to take that number. My third guy I'm going with is going to be Tyler Reddick, plus 950. Also FanDuel, a lot of FanDuel numbers this episode, but I gotta take that number because of how great he's been running recently. And the second place finish at a Pocono last year is fuel to the fire for that. My final pick, I gotta go Ty Gibbs with how great he ran last year. A plus 1,500 number, no doubt, is an insane steal. I think he should be much lower than that. 15-1 for Ty Gibbs is maximum value. I would push and would love to see Ty Gibbs get his win here. I believe he can do it.
Okay. I like that. I like the Ty Gibbs call out. And that would be another driver where we see, an unexpected type of winner. Not unexpected, but like a underdog type of Bowman. And we've seen Logano. I think Ty Gibbs could fit that narrative right in there as well. I'm locked in with you on 3 out of the 4, Hamlin and Larson. Honestly, I might not take Denny Hamlin. And that's no disrespect to you or him, because I do feel like that's a great pick. But there could be more value out there elsewhere. William Byron's a driver that I could potentially see because of how he raced at Iowa. He was closing in on Ryan Blaney. Was lights out that whole day for sure. No, that was Blaney's day, but it was Chase Elliott and William Byron at the end that was catching Blaney there on the 4 tires. So to me, I think William Byron could race well here. I might have to wait and see what happens after practice and qualifying if I'm deciding between him and Denny Hamlin. I think that would be my kind of deal breaker, where they do start and how much speed they have. My other picks, though, are going to be Kyle Larson plus 450, or even the better odds at FanDuel plus 550, like you mentioned there. I like that. I like that a lot. And then Tyler Reddick, I'm riding him. One other driver, though, that I gotta go with. I want to say Buescher, just based off of everything we've seen and the chaos at plus 2,500 to open the weekend. I feel like that's a number that's definitely going to go down. And I don't want to be like losing out to these drivers anymore that come out of nowhere, like a Bowman, like a Logano. So if I were to do a value play, I think Buescher could be that one. Going into this one, I think he definitely has the value. I think Blaney is another driver we can't really count out, right? Iowa, he was good, and he was dominant, actually. And then he's won at this racetrack before. So if we're looking for value, I could see a Blaney, I could see a Buescher. They're also in Fords. So to me, I do believe, to your point, with the Denny Hamlins and the Tyler Reddicks and even the Ty Gibbs, I definitely think those drivers in the Toyotas are going to kind of rise to the front in this one, as we've been seeing at this track in recent years. So Larson for sure is locked in for me. I think he should have won this race last year, and he'll be motivated to not only do that, but have a stronger finish than he had last weekend in Chicago. I think that was disappointment for him, especially after SVG went out. So lock in Larson and lock in Reddick. It'll be between Byron and Hamlin for the next one there for me. What are some of your favorite prop bets on the board right now?
Well, I'll start off again with Tyler Reddick, man. I mean, he's got 2 top 3s in a row. I found him at a plus 310 on, I believe, FanDuel again. He's been up there. You cannot ignore Tyler Reddick being up there. And again, second place last year. Everything screams that Tyler Reddick's going to get another top 3 finish, because Toyotas are great here. He's been on a roll, second place last year. Like, that's almost a lock. Like, it's like 90% lock unless things fall apart on Saturday. So Tyler Reddick top 3 to start. And I'm going to go back again to Josh Berry again, because again, I just looked at when I looked at the finishing order last year, I was almost surprised because, well, actually, no, because Harvick's ran that Peach scheme last year, and he found his way to the front because Rodney Childress is that guy on the box. And I know Stuart Haas has been having issues, but when you look again at how he's ran up these flat tracks, I gotta respect the numbers. Plus 1,200 on a top 5, plus 400 on a top 10 according to ESPN.com or ESPN bets. I like those numbers. I would take those numbers honestly, because who knows if he gets the top 5 at plus 1,200, we're eating, boys. 12-1 for top 5 is great. Top 3, be damned, that would be crazy. But top 5 is a respectable bet.
No, I like the top 5, especially with how he raced at Iowa too.
Absolutely, and New Hampshire, like I said, he's been very keen on the flat tracks. He was great here last year in the Xfinity Series. Should have won the race if it weren't for just one little mistake. Still ran solidly. So he's very, very much being dismissed by the books at the moment. I think the books might get surprised by Josh Berry. We just got to hope that Stuart Haas rolls out with enough speed going into this weekend, or Rodney Childress can cook during the race. And you're there. I mean, last time I was on the show, when we said Josh Berry, we weren't sweating at all.
No, not at all.
Those 2 weeks with New Hampshire and Iowa, we weren't sweating at all with the Josh Berry pick. So let's ride it again. Keep riding the wave, and let's go, Josh Berry.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I think that's the signs too. Every time you've been on the show, Josh Berry prop has hit. So I think right then and there, if you guys are tuning in right now and you're looking for a sign, well, Wyatt is it. He is the sign. And I think Josh Berry knows it. And I'm expecting him to come out hot and come out strong. And that is a great, like all those numbers, whether it's to win 100-1, top 5 and top 3, which are more, and even a top 10 plus 400. I could say right now, right after this show, I'm betting the top 10 and the top 5 because I don't want that value to go down any more than like where it's at right now. And like you said, RC on the box, I think that's going to be a huge, huge factor because of the strategy that gets called at this racetrack. I mean, we've seen another thing that I wanted to mention was we've seen winners come from 8th, 3rd, 19th, 13th, 19th, 9th, 9th, 2nd. A lot of variation in what we've been seeing. So
don't bet on the pole is what you're saying.
Exactly. Definitely not. Dude, don't have that much. I think after practice and qualifying, you get to see who's fast, but from where these guys start, it looks like it's back half of the top 10 or even, top 20. So I think that can be some value there.
Strategy right there.
Might not be something that the books consider, is that the starting finish or the starting compared to the finishing results of these drivers in the last few years here. One other top 5 guy I wanted to mention to you. So you're thinking Ty Gibbs to outright win it. Does that mean you also would take, if you're someone being a little bit safer, plus 180 for Ty Gibbs top 5 in this one?
Yeah, I mean, I believe so. I saw it was like what, plus 300, and it's even for him to get a top 5, plus 300 for a top 3, I believe, on DraftKings. I'm checking my FanDuel numbers.
Even plus 400 on DraftKings.
Plus 400 on DraftKings. Very, very good then. Like Ty Gibbs plus 440 on FanDuel for a top 3. I love that number. I mean, that's better than Reddick's number. He's been very fast here, like I've said, and I'm very high on Ty Gibbs right now. Like I would take the number if I were the viewer. Now it's according to my portfolio, of course. Like how many of these picks am I going to go nail on or going into the weekend? Do I want to spread myself too thin? No, I don't. So to get that plus 440 number to hit, I would have to take a little bit of the top Tyler Reddick top 3 a little bit out because you don't want to put in too many top 3 bets at the same time.
Well, only 3 guys can finish top 3.
Only 3 guys. There's only 3 guys. Now, if you hit both, then woohoo! But if you don't, that's just more. So it's the risk versus the reward, and it is close. It is considerable within for me to do that. Now, for all y'all, bet responsibly. That's on y'all. So good luck. But I would say if you like Ty Gibbs and think he's going to have a big shot to win, or run well, top 3 plus 440 is, or plus 400 on DraftKings as well. Those are good numbers, and I like that.
Awesome. I think that's a great point. Definitely bet responsibly. That's definitely something that needs to be taken into account every time you guys log into the sports book, because that is something that not only is smart, but it helps your winnings and your profit with the unit allocation and everything else that we talk about. I think that is something that's major, especially when, like we said, I mean, I was joking when I said it. Only 3 guys can finish inside the top 3,
True.
but it's true. I mean, like people have bet 5 or 6 guys, and I'm like, why are you doing too much there? Because then you're just gonna lose a lot more money that way.
If I were to do that, just do a 3-leg parlay, and if you hit, well, see it, suckers.
yeah, and if that's it, that would be major value. So, and that's a great point.
With how crazy things have been with how these finishes have been, we've seen Ricky Stenhouse get a top 10. Todd Gilliland's been crushing it, and now they're starting to respect his number. He's plus 450 here on DraftKings.
Crazy. I was thinking he was going to be like 8-1. Yeah, but hey, he deserves
4.5 to 1. He deserves it, absolutely.
Yeah,
Which makes me look. It makes me look and dig deeper to find somebody, and you know who that guy is? This week's going to be Daniel Hemrick. Why? Well, number one. Hey, number one. I did my research. Listen here. So, in his RCR days, he did get a top 10, and he ran, I think, 12th on another race in the 2022 race. He had 2 races in the Cup Series. Secondly, he didn't do too bad in his Xfinity Series days at this track. He got top 10s very consistently. So it makes me think, just because of how crazy things have been, and I love doing long shot top 10s as a straight up bet. Maybe attaching maybe a small little bit to make a parlay. Plus 2,000 on DraftKings, plus 2,200 on ESPN. They do parlays there as well. I've checked. And I think that's great value to play with. And like, not throw too much on, obviously. If I lose 5, if I lose like 0.1 units, I lose 0.1 units. At the end of the day, if it hits 2.2, we'll take it if that happens. So just with, I mean, and this is another thing that justifies it. Last year, Stenhouse got a top 10, and last year, Harrison Burton got a top 10. Harrison Burton's a plus. Yeah, I looked. It's like plus 1,600 on Harrison Burton. Do I want to bet Harrison Burton? Hell no. No. I don't. So I'm shooting for the moon. I would actually consider taking Daniel Hemrick plus 2,000 just for a all out, all or nothing type bet. Just to have fun. Because who knows? Who knows? Zane Smith might be the leading Chevrolet at the end of this. Maybe Daniel Hemrick is going to, he got a top 10 in Iowa too. So you never know at the end of these things.
No, yeah. And I do like the thought process there. And you actually did, you had the facts. I was nervous at first. I didn't know where you were going with it, but you wheeled it. You reeled it in there. And Daniel Hemrick, based off of everything you said, that's something I would throw a sprinkle on, because, we've seen it happen, and we've seen it happen consistently. I think that's the biggest thing. Like recently, we've seen some. Nashville was a 5 overtime crazy race. We've seen drivers at Pocono Yeah. And then and Nashville, Chicago, like the things are heating up. We're getting closer to the NASCAR playoffs, and everyone's
only going to get crazier.
Win. Exactly. So, hey, to that point, I like that value there. Let's close this thing out here. We've talked about so many different things. It's a little bit hard to choose for me, but based off of what's happened to me the last few weeks, which is funny because the last few weeks, I feel like this is a constant trend with my favorite plays. For 4 to 5 weeks, it was Martin Truex Jr. bringing the value from plus 700 to plus 900 and looking like he was going to win the race. Never really panned out. Well, I'm sticking with the guy I've been going with for the last couple of weeks, who I've mentioned is my favorite play, and that's Tyler Reddick. It's Tyler Reddick plus 950. I just don't know how you get off that train right now. I'm staying on the Tyler Reddick train. He's got back-to-back top 5s, back-to-back top 2s finishes at this track. Finished third and then second within the last few weeks. I feel like everything's coming together for him. And not only that, he's going to be pissed off that he's lost the last couple of weeks. I feel like that is a motivator for him. The last time he lost a race like this badly, it was at Texas. He then wins at Talladega. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he just drives a little bit more aggressively. That's something we definitely see at Ryan Blaney. He does that. Whenever he has a bad week or an off week, it seems to me that he drives a little extra harder the next one. But Wyatt, what do you think about these favorite plays here? Which one, or few, if you have any more, could you pinpoint in this one?
Completely agree with Tyler Reddick. I'm right there with you on this train. Unlike the Truex train from last time we were talking, Tyler Reddick, man, like, how do you get off this? Like, I mean, I even have the top 3 plus 310 to cover in case it doesn't work out, because that's how, that's how confident I am. Why are you betting the top 3 is going to win? Well, I mean, if he wins, it's just more money. That's why. But Tyler Reddick plus 950 and his top 3 plus 1 or 310 is just a very, very great number to go with how great he's been running. And you can get off the train if it's going to be like that. If he's finished second here last year, if he's been running so damn consistently the last couple weeks, I got to take his odds at 950 as my favorite to go into Pocono if he ran that well last year. And Billy Scott's a great crew chief too. I got to give him his flowers because he was on that strategy at Chicago, and he's been showing his prowess as a crew chief as of late. And being that Pocono is one of these tracks that it requires great strategy to win, I think I have a lot of faith in Tyler Reddick going into this weekend. Other plays I like going in, I'm going to again shout out my Josh Berry top 5, top 10 play, 1,200 and 400, just for value's sake. And with how good he ran here last year, I have very high hopes that he will do well. Gibbs again, I think top 3 for him too is a great play. Top 5 as well is very respectable. I would like to go. I might shop around again and see what other odds for Gibbs is going forward into this weekend. And my final one, let's go the Xfinity Series because I like betting Xfinity Series as well. And who am I going with again? You knew it. It's Corey Heim again.
Yes.
Top 3 is a plus 550 for him. Now his top 5 is probably gonna be lower. I'd like the top 5 a little bit more, but he got what, third at Iowa, and I called it right on the hammer. I was right on it with him because I knew it was just like Richmond. That was why. But Corey Heim is getting used to the Xfinity Series, and Sam Hunt Racing is a Toyota team.
They're a good program too.
They're a great program. Corey Heim is a fantastic driver. Plus 550 for him going into this race is a good number to go on. It's the only Xfinity play I have. I have no idea who to go with for the race win for Saturday. Numbers don't look that great on DraftKings, in my opinion. Ryan Truex in the race. If y'all want to go that way. Yeah, it's always fun to see who's in the race for these races. Taylor Gray is in at plus 4,000. Josh Berry again is running the 15 for AM Racing, and he's a plus 6,000. Just saying, Joey Logano, whatever his top 5, or if they even do the top 10 for Xfinity, I'd look into that too. For AM Racing's number 15 and Josh Berry. But the only play I got for now that's open is the top 3 for Corey Heim at plus 550. I cannot stress enough how much you have to respect his talent going forward in any series that he runs, maybe except for Cup because he's learning. But he's been on Xfinity. He's going to do double duty in the Truck Series, I believe, as well. And you can't count out Corey Heim. So top 3 for him, pending his top 5 prop as well. So
all right,
let's make money again.
That's awesome. It's Heim time. Berry, we're feeling very Berry, and some good Tyler Reddick train. I mean, that's a good top 3 for you there. Well, Wyatt, thanks so much again for coming on. We'll keep having you back on. There's a couple more races we have scheduled to bring you back on the show, and I'm really grateful for that. But there's something big that you're doing this weekend once again. Gonna be there at Iowa for the IndyCar race. Talk a little bit about that and where we could find you and follow along with any of the content you'll be producing there at the racetrack.
I'll be there from Friday to Sunday over at Iowa Speedway. First time going, excited for it. IndyCar, first race I'm covering IndyCar. Thank you, Front Stretch, for that opportunity. Excited to be in corn country. We'll be covering IndyCar racing out there. Who is going to beat the Corn King himself, Joseph Newgarden? That will be to be determined. No odds yet. Again, I wanted to get those odds in for the favorite plays because I had to plug Iowa here, man. But I'm excited. I'm excited to be out there. Luke Combs, Post Malone, and Eric Church, among others, going to be concerting out there. I'm sure you'll see me out there for that. Can't miss any of that. But we will be covering Iowa Speedway, frontstretch.com, Wyatt Game Time on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Wyatt_Game_Time_Watson on Instagram. Be sure to check out the content that we get out there. And yeah, let's have fun. The tricky triangle this weekend, Tino.
Thanks so much again to Wyatt for coming on the show. I had a great time talking with him, breaking down everything you guys need to know from a value standpoint, odds-wise, and everything else in between for Pocono Raceway this weekend. We got to get back to victory lane, and I'm excited for our chance to do so in this one. Be sure to stick around for the Stock Car Scoop that comes out on the Front Stretch Podcast Network after every Sunday, and after every Sunday NASCAR race. There's going to be a lot of things that you guys need to know and all the behind the scenes, as the Front Stretch team will be there at the track getting all of the behind the scenes content that you need to see and hear about as well. So be sure to tune in to the Stock Car Scoop and all the Front Stretch Podcast Network platforms, and follow us on social media as well. Follow me on social media at Tino, PATTIGNO. Be sure to tune in to all Wyatt's coverage of the IndyCar series at Iowa. You can follow him at Wyatt Game Time as well, and be sure to let us know in the comments below who you think is going to win the race this weekend at Pocono. Do you like some of the long shots like Josh Berry, Ty Gibbs, or a favorite in Kyle Larson or Denny Hamlin? Be sure to comment down below, leave a like on the video, and I'll see you guys next week as we go through the gears.